Yeah, well, it is really thrilling to sit here with you because I've been reading your book as part of the Association for
Yeah.
Pre and Perinatal Psychology and
Mm.
Health Certification Program. And we put together these 11 modules that we call core competencies for our students in pre and
Right.
perinatal psychology to learn.
Mm.
And when we got to the conscious parenting module, we had to decide who were we going to put in. And you've been a great speaker for APPA, and they thought about you right away. So in went your book, the Parenting for a Peaceful World. And I was reading your book because I have got to create all the curriculum for the students to make sure that they get these competencies under their belt. And I was thinking really that you are a man ahead of your time, because I looked up, it was published in 2005. I know a little bit about publishing. It takes a while to put ideas down and then formally have them bound.
Yes, it does.
But I really decided on the section, the rites of passage, those are core rites of passage.
Yeah.
And I would just love for you to talk about them and some of the core messages that can come out of these rites of passage.
Sure. Yeah. The 5 rites of passage is something that I learned primarily from the tradition of psychotherapy in which I was trained, which comes from the body psychotherapies, and is very, very focused on the biological development, so that we don't have a mind and a psychology that's separate and disconnected from the life of the body. And what I found so interesting is that even though this stuff kind of predated a lot of the attachment research and the pre and perinatal psychology research, it seemed to just go hand in glove so well, so that the empirical researchers are saying things that were equally discovered from a different pathway, from observations in the course of psychotherapy.
Well, these 5 rites of passage, which we're going to get to, but
Yeah.
they really struck me in my core, in my body, listening, reading, and engaging in them, because that's how we track people who have had difficulty in the pre and perinatal period. These 5 rites, and in working with adults, we hear them.
Yes.
In working with families, we hear them, and I think that they're always going on in the unconscious, in the background. So
Much of the time. Much of the time.
Well,
and it is right, it goes all the way to the core.
well, why don't you name them just so we can
Yeah.
have them out? And that.
So the first 5, so each of these 5 stages, they're key developmental rites of passage that where we're wanting to lay down a foundational layer of emotional intelligence. And it seems to go in the same order for people. I mean, there's no ethnicity, there's no nation here. It's about the human neuropsychological core. It's universal. So it's shared. And so it goes like this. The first developmental task, or the learning that we're looking for, is about the right to exist. We learn about our right to exist.
Right.
Or we don't, according to how we're treated, how life treats us. The next one is about the right to need, or you can say the right to have needs and express our needs. The next one after that is about the right to have support. And by that I mean support. We are interdependent beings, support without manipulation,
Right.
without being taken advantage of
Right.
when we're vulnerable. After that comes the right to freedom, autonomy, independence, freedom to be creative, exuberant, self-expressive. And the 5th one, and this adds up to about the 7th year of life. The first 7 years of life plus our time in the womb are these core developmental passages. Something happens neurologically around roughly age 7 in which we kind of cement some of the foundational or the core aspects of our way of relating in the world. And so the 5th stage is about the right to give and receive love, the right to express passion.
Right.
And it's very much about the physicality of love too.
Right. Affection and bonding.
Yeah. And it is a time where humans are beginning to come awake in terms of infant or child sexuality, which is nothing like adult sexuality.
Yes, I got
It's not
it.
about intercourse.
Right. I got
People
it.
get that wrong and it's catastrophic. But it's the beginnings, I guess, is the embryonic stage of human sexuality in a time that we become awakened genitally and we become very, very passionate and
Right.
Intense
Right.
young beings.
Well, if I could just say, like, these 5 rights, like when we're talking about pre and perinatal core principles, what really attracted APPPAH to your work and the people who are in our module on conscious parenting is that we're looking at welcoming beings, really tracking them as they come into form, consciousness coming into form. So this right to exist, often it's an imprint from people coming into, conception and into the prenatal experience, which we know that babies have experiences in utero. And so a lot of times this right to exist gets challenged too with difficult births. And we found that these babies, if they have difficulty in utero, it can really get ignited into this questioning. Am I supposed to be here? Do I have a right to exist? Do I belong here? So we're working with these early patterns, and they do have an impact on our growing nervous system. So, like these positive messages that you have in each of those core rights, I think those are just a delicious blueprint for any family to engage in, or any educator to really impart.
So can I tell you a little bit about the mechanics of how this unfolds in later life?
Absolutely.
Because earlier on you were saying, and you were spot on when you said it, that it's as if we keep on relating to each other from these core places for much of the rest of our lives. And if not all the time, but these issues keep on coming again and again and again. So just looking at the first stage, which is around birth, life in utero, and just those first few perinatal moments where our sense of, do I have a right to exist? Am I welcome on this earth? Am I welcome by my family? That is really embedded in that time.
Absolutely.
And what happens is when there is a shock in that moment, when we experience the world as violent or cold or where people feel absent to us, this kind of this earliest time of life when we don't really have a fight or flight mechanism to speak of, all that the infant's body can do is to dissociate.
Right.
In defense, when something is terrifying, and often a complicated medicalized birth can feel incredibly violent and shocking to mothers as well as to this exquisitely sensitive and sentient body of ourselves as a baby.
Yes.
When you think that we feel so much, we're so alive and vibrant in those moments, and our bodies don't even have the ability to brace against the shock of a violent birth, the noise of it. What happens is that the brain creates the biochemistry of dissociation. And either, a very traumatic moment in life when we're that vulnerable, or an ongoing environment of insensitivity to us as babies, not enough of the loving eye contact and the holding.
Right.
That starts to condition the body and the nervous system into that dissociative state so that we become good at dissociation.
Right.
So much later on, how is that reflected? We've become expert at being dissociated. It's kind of a state of not really being quite here. What underlies that, if you even get to have a conscious belief that I don't belong here, I don't have a right to exist, before that belief comes into our consciousness, underlying that is this kind of behavioral, attitudinal, automatic sense of being, which is I'm the last one to enter into the room, or it can manifest as detachment.
Yes, it's kind of biomechanical, right? Yeah. It's biological, neurobiological.
It's neuro, psycho, endocrinological,
and the biopsychosocial fear. Yes,
it's the whole, everything that goes on in the body is speaking that relationship to life with so much of what we do, particularly when we're feeling overwhelmed or threatened in the world, we fall back towards that first defense mechanism that we learn.
And that's just that first rite of passage, and then there's the others, and then they get layered on. So in each one of these rites of passages, there's these core messages that we can teach families and we can teach educators to really embody and impart, which is what I love about that section of your book. That's really amazing.
Yes. And so following on then from the right to exist is the right to need, because so much of the drama of being a little baby centers around the sensuality of need. We're so present in our skin, we learn to start to reach out and to control the volition of reaching out with our arms and hands, and orally, incredibly alive, powerfully alive around the sucking reflex.
Yes.
Which can be when we're satiated and met at the level of our own need, according to the rhythm of the coming and going of our need as babies, that can be a blissful experience. It's not just satisfying, it can be deeply blissful and streaming of pleasure through the body of a baby.
And James Prescott talks about this as that imprint of the peaceful person, the peaceful human being begins really here with this. And I know we don't have too much time to talk, but I know that this is the root of what you're about, really, that peaceful place.
That place is one of the key drivers of peaceful and harmonious relationships.
Right.
When we have the body memory, because our bodies remember everything that we felt, not necessarily what happened, but our bodies remember everything that we felt all the way back to before birth in the womb.
Right.
And we act from that place, consciously or unconsciously. And so, mainly the drama of being a baby is about our right to express our need, which also means, by implication, when you're a baby, that we, especially because babies are not equipped to handle the no.
Right.
Babies cannot take disappointment. We cannot imagine the future as babies. The brain cannot even imagine the future in which mum's going to come back after she says no.
Well, that's that imprint of the world sees me, hears me, I'm seen, I'm heard, it's a safe place, I'm going to have my needs met. I mean, that's a very key imprint, positive imprint.
Absolutely, and I think it goes even deeper. It's a safe place, but it's also a delicious, pleasurable place.
That's that imprint of the physical imprint that creates a deeply peaceful, resonant being when we have those early pleasurable needs met.
When there are enough of those moments at mother's breast, I mean, when you watch a baby towards the end of breastfeeding, they go into an ecstatic, deeply, deeply blissful place.
It's ecstatic for women too. I mean,
yes,
okay,
yeah.
Women can repattern. Women repattern during this time too.
That's true. The brains get larger.
Yeah,
because oxytocin feeds their brains. Their brains add mass.
It's a wonderful time.
So imagine that as a driver of a more peaceful and harmonious society and a more sustainable society. That when our body memory has that reservoir in it of just remembering that place, accessing that place, life is nourishing essentially. To feel like I have in my bodily life access to those deeply pleasurable, blissful, peaceful states that come through contact, through the meeting of the need.
Yes.
That's a driver of a whole new range of attitudes.
And what are some of the core
behaviors?
You have in your book those core beliefs that can come from that? Do you remember the positive messages? Can you speak some of those? Do you remember those? I know it's a lot.
Well, from the right, yes.
Yeah.
Let me see. From the right to exist, it's about I have a right to be here. I have a right to assert who I am. People are interested in whom I am. I have this expectation of being welcome.
Right. I'm welcome. I'm wanted. Yes.
Yes. The world is essentially, at least in human relations, it's essentially a safe place.
Right.
Yeah.
And the right to need.
With the right to need, if we can distill that into the conscious positive belief, what that produces is, it's okay to reach out. When I have a need, I'm an okay person. When I'm needy and when I'm not needy. It's okay to have my needs met. It's okay to show my pleasure at that.
Right. And I'm seen, I'm heard, I'm felt, I'm understood.
Yes.
Yes.
So we become less clingy in our relationships.
And less anxious around our message being conveyed. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a huge problem in that codependent, super clingy, grasping, jealous response that a lot of us including myself, have in our intimate relationships.
Right.
That's a person that really doesn't expect that if I lose you, someone else will, love continues someplace.
Right. Yes.
You know?
I got it.
And we do everything to battle re-experiencing the shock of the original abandonment, which was the absolute panic
It's true.
of reaching out into a dark room with, in the body of a baby, need that is not answered soon turns to rage.
It's true.
Absolute rage.
That's true.
Vicious rage. And then to despair.
Yes. And then there's the shock.
Then there's the collapse.
Yes.
The collapse, the giving up.
Yes.
And you can see that even in the bodies of so many adults, that we live life in resignation.
Right.
I expect to not get. And I almost say so in my relationships. There's so much of what we do as adults that it's just continually a reflection of how we began.
Yeah, and these core beliefs. So then the next one is the right to support.
The right to support.
Which is so key, key.
Yes.
Especially for families to hear that they have this, and moms and the whole...
Yeah. I could make it a little bit clearer by saying the right to have support, the right to receive support.
Right.
This is a really, really delicate time of transition between being a baby to being a toddler.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the issues here are about power.
Right.
Personal power. I mean, it is exhilarating if you can recall that moment of standing up for the first time and to have this experience of propelling ourselves in the world.
Mm.
For a baby starting to become a toddler, that would be as exciting as for you to discover that you can learn to fly to the moon and back. You would be over the top exhilarated. And you see that in the face of these little people.
Right.
As exhilarated as they are, they're incredibly vulnerable, fragile and vulnerable. And one of the things that can go wrong in that time is that we watch this powerful little baby becoming a toddler, and what happens in a lot of families is that we use that for our own pride. Mm. We don't respect them at their vulnerability. We don't offer necessarily the support as they ask for it. We start demanding more. Mm-hmm. It's that kind of, yes, you can do it, good boy, good girl. It's a sort of an over-empowerment of the baby that we're trading in love for specialness. Mm-hmm. So in a sense, the ego grows huge like a mushroom, but the legs are weak. That's not just metaphorical, by the way. That ends up being embodied.
You can see it in people's physical structure.
You often can. And so the relationship becomes about manipulation rather than genuine support and holding. That's the risk. We reward children for being bigger than themselves. We say, you're a big girl now. Right. Big boy.
So
and that's a selfish thing from the parent.
Yeah, they're trying to control the child. So genuine support, what is that like? Instead of the top-down, good girl, good boy, speak a little bit about the genuine support.
Well, if you listen deeper in yourself, can you be happy for the child's joy, that they have enough of their own? When a little fella stands up, it's exhilarating. It's about being with them and sharing that moment and saying, look, if you need my hand, it's available. If you don't, I'm nearby.
Right.
Can we find our ways to respect their power as it grows, to give them the room to move,
right,
to climb the furniture, to be exuberant,
right,
without kind of getting our own point scoring from that.
Yeah, I got it. And then the right to freedom is just after that, yes?
Yeah, soon after that, you have your walking, running, climbing, talking infant.
Right, up till age 2 or 3, right?
From about 18 months to into the 3 and 4. Now, bearing in mind these passages, there's a huge overlap. There isn't, you don't wake up one morning and you're done with, and these issues continue for life,
true.
but they add up. And so with the right to freedom, it is about autonomy, freedom of self-expression, and about boundary.
Right.
It's a time when the word no really comes in on a daily basis in the relationship. And half of what parenting is then, it's through conflict, learning how to navigate conflict.
Right.
Because so many of the things that this powerful little child, girl or boy, will want to do, will be in breach of us as parents or in breach of each other.
Right.
You know, powerful little beings. So we're called upon to repeatedly say no to their exploration and to this expansion.
Yeah.
That is critical, because the kind of thing that can go wrong there is about punishment.
Yes,
and this is age old, punishing or shaming.
Yeah.
Where these powerful little kids get crushed.
Right.
Then you get the good little boy or the submissive good girl.
Right.
And then the good behavior is not from empathy, it is about getting the approval. And when somebody gets stuck in that approval seeking for life, it's tragic.
It's true.
It's painful.
Yeah, right.
Sometimes we don't even know as adults, am I doing this for approval? Or am I doing this because it feels like I'm on purpose here. I'm aligned with my heart.
Right.
Am I doing this from empathy? Do I really care about you, or am I just trying to get your money here? It's
or your attention, or
your goods.
But just to sort of cap our experience here with like the last right, the right to love, and I know that this is a gateway into the rest of our life as well. But I know that when we're working with babies, working with families, this right to love really hits home, because when I'm working with families, I'll often tell them that babies come to give their love as well as receive love. And this is can be a bit of a mystery that it's hurtful to a baby not to receive their love. So can you just talk a little bit about your perspective? So
for this rite of passage, we're not really thinking about a baby anymore. We're thinking about a child who is from 4 to 7. Again, the boundaries are very blurry, and there's this tremendous surge of passion. Look, a lot of mothers will tell you, if you have a little boy, those moments when your little boy climbs all over you and kisses you half to death, and I hear little boys who are 5 saying, "Mummy, I want to marry you." This incredible, almost romantic, passionate love, and that can be overwhelming for a lot of parents. And they're very physical about it too. They're physical. They discover, their whole body and the pleasure that their body can bring. Not just oral anymore, but their whole body. So that starts to be confronting, particularly in our, sexually still repressive society. There's a lot of injunctions. It's scary for parents, and
it's part of our culture. Very religious cultures in particular. I mean,
yes,
we have a hard time with sexuality. It's true.
That's true. Humanity's evolving with this, but we're not quite there yet. So this is a child that, the two main things that go wrong is either that the child's physicality then becomes abused and exploited by a unsatisfied adult that doesn't have good boundaries, and they misread the passion of the child, and that's just catastrophic.
Right.
That's molestation and abuse.
Right.
Or even those sort of smothering hugs that's not about the child but about the hungry adult. On the other side of that is the repression and the punishment and the no and the pushing away. A lot of dads feel confronted by this, and then just kind of they freeze up, and mum sometimes too, and the children sense this kind of withdrawal of the warmth and the affection. There's also I'm interested in, this is kind of the beginning of a very conscious, this very binary on-off view of morality that children of this age have, and it's very important. They have a black and white view of the world. So I want to say this, that people that grow up thinking you're either for me or against me. The lack of nuance, the lack of relativity in this, a brain-based idea of morality, if you know what I mean, that reflects back to some wounding at that period of life. It's got a lot to do with how the no-no came, the quality of the punishing and rewarding authoritarian control of the magnificent child at this age.
The magnificent child. So
magnificent.
So what are the positive messages that can come from a healthy, passage? If there aren't the no-nos and there aren't the withdrawals, What are some of the healthy aspects?
Healthy capacity to loving sexuality as an adult.
Mm-hmm.
That does not mean promiscuity. It's not like the sexual liberation of the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
It's about the ability to love and be present sensually, but generally to lead a passionate life, a strong, assertive, self-expressive, passionate life. There is immense energy in a child.
Right.
Absolutely immense.
It's true.
And most of us walk around with the brakes on. Really? Each one of these brakes are the kind of defense from what the wounding might have been at either, sometimes a little bit at all of these stages.
Mm-hmm. It's true. Yeah, that's true.
The fear of facing intimacy. And I'm not just talking about mental illness here.
Right.
Everybody has some
imprint.
Exactly. And then the automatic defensive behaviors that we've learnt to protect ourselves, from that original wound,
Right.
So I loved, my heart was broken, I don't want to get that close again. And we find all kinds of ways to not get too close, to control intimacy in our lives.
That's the wounding from that period, or the learned pattern from a tricky rite of passage there, the rite of love. So, yeah, well, it would be really my hope that educators and families can take the information in your book and in what you write about and speak about so passionately to create sort of an environment around the family. Because what I like to teach about is that we can perhaps create conditions that will bring out the healthy parts of us that are probably still there, right?
Yes.
They're still there. They probably are overlaid with these experiences, but can we uncouple them, and as families, as communities, really bring back these places? Or do you think they're truly gone if they haven't really been supported?
It's not that we even need to know how far we can go and how deeply we can bring back these places of joy and fullness. We just go to the next place, and there's a lot of room to move forward here. For instance, with the first rite of passage, and the key is repetition. The healing happens through repetition of the experience that's specific to that particular rite of passage around which the wounding is that you're working with.
Right.
So, for instance, all the warm, safe, welcoming experiences for someone who has a lot of wounding around the right to need, to offer that repeatedly. And there are there's a myriad ways to offer that.
Right.
Your therapeutic model, someone else's, is, it's infinite. To offer those welcoming, safe, warm experiences, begin to tighten, unfurl the nervous system defense around that kind of wounding, leaving a lot more room possible for the radiance of the person. Similarly with the next 4 rites of passage, with the right to need, it's taking, helping somebody with the shame around needing, saying yes to the expression of need, whether or not you can meet the need. With the right to support, it's giving that person an environment in which they won't feel manipulated, and to help that person to feel like there is no shame in being vulnerable. That's so important, helping them to find their vulnerability, because that's where we can have contact again and closeness. So we're not so identified with a big ego. That's a hugely liberating moment. With the right to freedom, the healing experience is about freedom. It's about removing the shame and saying yes to the dancer that is in you.
Yeah, the exuberance. I liked when you used that word.
Playtime.
Yeah, people.
Playtime.
People have a little trouble with exuberance sometimes. So.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, because our parents and guardians had trouble with our exuberance. It's as simple as that. Now, teachers especially do not be exuberant in school or preschool, whatever. Playfulness.
Right.
You see somebody bound up in shame and politeness, a moment of freedom to become playful is glorious. It's like the sun comes out.
Yeah.
It's like God is laughing in that moment.
It's true. Playfulness is
Yeah.
attractive.
Yeah.
And then the final one, what's the medicine there?
Well, quite often it seems to be that somebody that has, a lot of wounding principally around the right to love, it will end up substituting achievement for intimacy. There's a rigidity of attitude and an over focus on work. It can be powerful but very workaholic and difficult to get close to.
Interesting.
Yeah, tenderness.
So the medicine is being tender.
The medicine is about tenderness. And sometimes you have to be a little bit demanding and say to somebody, look, I really, really respect your capacity for achievement and how important your work is. But my truth is I'm having some difficulty getting close to you.
Yeah.
Won't you sit with me?
Yeah. And just be.
And just be.
Right.
There's so much in the dialogue even. Actually, physical touch and massage, superb.
Right.
And there's so much in the dialogue where people soften down and open the heart. Often, that's why I work as a parenting coach so much. People start to talk about their children. Our children are a doorway to the heart.
Right.
Sometimes the man with the most armored chest will melt in talking about his baby
children.
boy, his daughter.
Right. Well, it's been really great talking with you today, Robin. It's so great to have you here in the United States, and
very exciting for me too.
Doing your Peaceful World tour with my friend Lisa Reagan and Kindred Community. So, thank her for sharing you with me today, and thanks for talking about these rites of passage. Our students are going to be real appreciative to have this.
I'm so glad, and it's a real honor for me that you're using my book as a text for your training. I'm so happy with that, so thank you.
Sure. Good.